What's up, everybody? We have 10 minutes here with Mr. Erik Barber joining us to discuss the topic of still hunting. And that doesn't mean as in, are you still hunting or not? It actually is a form of hunting in which involves you being very still, relatively motionless. It is painfully slow at times for people like myself who are a bit hyperactive, but it's a pretty legit tactic.
Very legit, Jim.
Mark, break it down for those not yet familiar.
Well, I'd say the name itself in some ways is counterintuitive, right? And when you hear the word still, you think standing still, but then you add hunting on, which is like kind of a verb / is a verb. And so you combine them
It
and
implies
you get
movement.
It implies movement, so you get still hunting, which is essentially, I'd say, a very slow, methodical, careful creeping through, I'd say the forest. It's generally in more like, timbered areas.
Yeah.
Where you are literally possibly even taking one step at a time and surveying your surroundings, I'd say visually first, and then oftentimes with optics.
Well, it really helps nicely. Muckenhern and I actually were just doing this yesterday.
Yeah.
And we went out to some public land.
Way to start the new year, by the way.
It was a great way. We went out to some public land, and it was very thick, but there was a trail that went through it. And what we did was we went up and down the trail about 2 times, and we found, luckily it had just snowed, which makes things really nice, right? For tracking deer and seeing trail or tracks and stuff like that. We found the freshest set of tracks that we could find going down into this really steep sort of ravine, or almost like a Wisconsin's version of a canyon, I guess. And then it all went down towards some ag field. And we spotted the freshest tracks that we could find, that they had definitely come from that day. We were out in the afternoon. They'd probably been going by in the morning, headed down towards the ag fields and down into all this thick timber. So we sort of took that and then just walked down. And yeah, like you said, just very slowly. I mean, like, couple of steps, as though you're trying to, like, as a kid, sneak up on your older brother, where every movement is... It's actually, I found, to be quite a good core workout, because there are times where you're, like, balancing on one foot and then waiting to just try and find the best place to put down the next foot. And then you take a few steps, you stand, and you just stare, and you look around for a bit. And you do that until you get to wherever it is that you intend to go. We looked on the Onyx maps. We wanted to get down close to the ag fields. It was pretty interesting what ensued, because we made our way. It took us, I don't know. We probably went we probably went about 100 yards. And that took us about 45 minutes or so, maybe even an hour.
Yeah.
And when we got there, it's kind of this funny feeling you get, because when you start out, you feel as though you're this outsider entering into the woods, right? And after a while, you've been in the woods so long, and you've been moving so slowly and so, just methodically, that you then eventually start to feel as though you're part of the woods, So, like, where you came in, perhaps deer will have already sort of, or like the woods will have closed in on that. You sort of disconnected your ties to the outside world.
The initial disturbance is over.
Exactly. And now you're just there. And that was particularly evident when Ryan and I were standing, and we got down to the point where we kind of liked where we were to possibly set up for a little bit longer and not be necessarily moving so much. And I heard some leaves crunching behind me at 7 o'clock or so, and I turned, not in the day, but in my directional. I turned around, and there is a doe just 40 yards away, just flicking her tail, walking around, right up a hill.
It worked.
I mean, she literally had no idea that we were there, and we weren't even hiding behind anything. We were just out in the open, which there you're never in the open because there's trees everywhere. But, like, we weren't actively trying to hide. We were both just standing straight up, looking around. Ryan's grabbing his binoculars. We're like, motion is happening.
Yeah.
She had no idea.
Is she in the freezer now?
No. Okay. So that was, I did pull my gun up, and I did briefly in the scope see her rump, but I never got a good shot at the kill zone. Now I know in Wisconsin, if I'd seen any brown, I'd have been ripping that trigger.
It's an
But-
exaggeration, Jim.
that is.
Paint
But
people in a negative light.
but anyway, no, it didn't end up. And then magically, like a ghost, she actually walked behind one tree and then was gone.
Just gone.
Ryan and I stared up there for about 25 minutes, and she never came out.
Yep.
But completely unalarmed, though. It was pretty amazing. And we walked by about 12 deer beds.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yep. It is. I think still hunting is one of the more overlooked tactics.
I would agree with that.
And also, what's that?
I was gonna say we talk a lot about spot and stalk.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about jumping in a tree stand, and we just don't talk a lot about still hunting. Like you said, it's overlooked.
And to bring it back to spot and stalk, like if you've ever been on a spot and stalk hunt, a still hunt is that last 30 yards of your final stalk,
Right.
for the entire hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to describe it.
Every step is you're articulating it perfectly. You're not trying to step on a branch, and
It's kind of like spot and stalk minus the spot.
yeah, exactly.
You're just stalking like we were off of a trail.
Yep.
Or off of some tracks.
Yep.
So it was like, well, we think something's probably up here because these tracks indicate there is, but it could be. And there was a time too where another time Ryan was walking along, kicked up 2 does.
Yep.
10 yards
Yeah.
from him.
Right.
There's 2 things that I would say, and then I'm gonna kick it over to you.
I think you're going to say exactly what I'm going to say.
But I think still hunting is one of the things that you need to. It's condition dependent. So if you have really wet weather, it's a great time to move through the woods because you can do it quietly. The leaves are really soft. But if it is crisp and crunchy, one of the best things to do, I think, is to throw a turkey call in and just go through real quiet. You got to embrace. You're going to make noise. There's no way to get around it.
And if you're going,
pretend you're a turkey.
Yeah.
And if you're going slow enough,
yeah.
You're not going to, essentially emulate that natural pattern of human footsteps.
And if you do, like, break it up by, raking the leaves with your feet. Go like a turkey, Embrace the noise. So what would you add to that?
No, I was going to say exactly condition dependent, and Jim, you touched on it, right? You had a soft, fresh blanket of wet snow, wet leaves, and it was perfect, conditions to slip through the woods there.
Yeah.
We used to do a fair amount of still hunting, hunting blacktails, Western Washington, and actually that's when I was back there again this past fall. I killed that buck still hunting in the timber.
Yep.
I shot him. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it was like we were having it was going to be pretty much, cold and clear and crisp most of the hunt. And there was this one day where we were going to get this window of rain, and it was like this microburst storm. Rain was coming down in sheets. The wind was rocking, and we're like, yep, we're going to dip into the timber. So my dad and my brother went up, and I dipped down in, and I'd probably gone like 200 yards.
Yep.
And I looked over.
Which took you probably...
Which took me a while. And I was looking up the hill, and all of a sudden I just scanned to my right, and here's this buck just walking by. He was just
isn't that how it happens 90% of the time,
Yeah. I mean, he was just doing his buck thing, and I turned, dropped to a knee, and he cleared a gap in the trees, and I shot him.
That's the part that just baffles me. Like you have at that point become part of the forest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're no longer an outsider.
You're
in it.
It's really fun, and I from a tactic standpoint, I can't overemphasize the use of your binoculars while you're doing that and stopping too. Just because, what looks like just a wall of trees, you throw your binos up and you can see into it and well beyond
even if it's only 30 yards away.
Even if it's only 30 yards away.
That magnification isn't
They could be bedded down because they haven't been kicked up. It's not like a drive where you're trying to stir them up. They could just be chilling there.
Yep, exactly.
And Erik brought up a really good point with the turkey call, or depending on where you're at, possibly a different animal noise. I know I've been hunting elk before. And
they hear you.
And blow, or excuse me, I was hunting elk, but I jumped a bunch of deer I knew there was elk beyond the deer.
Yeah.
And the deer got up and started to run, and I cow called at them, and those deer immediately calmed down and just started walking, and they ended up not blowing the elk out.
Interesting.
Yep.
Again, getting back to the deer and just a different sound. My dad and I were still hunting in Alder Bottom in Western Washington. And going super quiet. There was this old, just mossy cat road in the bottom, sword ferns everywhere. Well, I stepped on a stick, pop, and I took my grunt call out, and I gave 3 soft grunts on it.
Yeah.
I took 2 more steps. I turned around to check my back trail, and there was a buck standing 20 yards right behind me, and I pulled up and I shot him.
Dude.
I must have walked right by him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're over the time.
No, we're good right now. But the last thing I'll throw out there, we just went at 10 minutes. But the last thing I'll throw out is Ryan and I discussed this a little bit yesterday. Amber polarized sunglasses.
Okay.
There's something about them in midday until it gets to like the later times or the really earlier times where you don't have a ton of light. But in midday when it is decently bright out and the sun's out,
Yep.
amber polarized sunglasses in thick timber somehow makes it like 3D.
pop,
You can
yeah.
see things so much better with those things on.
Is that a snow related thing or an all time related thing?
I prefer it all the time
Okay.
because lots of things have glare on them, and that's what polarized sunglasses are designed to reduce and whatnot. And the amber color, something about it, makes everything look 3D. And when I take them off, all of a sudden I just get lost in all of it. It's crazy. I don't know what it is about it. I'd be curious if anybody really knows their stuff about sunglasses and polarization and all that stuff. But amber polarized sunglasses, I really like wearing those when I'm out there doing this. Cool. 10 minutes.
Hold
or
on.
a little bit more.
I got one more thing.
Okay.
You're obviously using your sight senses, but you're going so slow. Do not forget to use your hearing and also your smell, because you're going at such a pace that you can pick those things up, and it just might make the difference.
That was a worthwhile 20 seconds to add on, Mark. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Jim.
Well done. I take back my sigh. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.